It was supposed to be a quiet Tuesday morning on Roloff Farms. The Oregon mist was just settling over the pumpkin patch, the kind of peaceful silence that usually signals the start of a productive week. Instead, that silence was shattered by the distinct, piercing sound of sirens. It ended with 3 Washington County squad cars, a screaming match in the driveway that woke up the neighbors, and Caryn Chandler trapped by her own moving trucks. This is the 911 call and the police report narrative that TLC prayed you would never hear. We're talking about a situation so volatile, so unprecedented, that it completely shifts the balance of power in the Roloff family forever. Reports are coming in from locals and deep dive insiders suggesting that what took place was not just a misunderstanding, but a calculated, hostile move that backfired in the most spectacular way possible. Imagine the scene. Blue and red lights flashing against the farmhouse walls, mud flying everywhere. And at the center of it all, the woman who thought she had finally won the war, realizing she had just walked into a trap. If you want to see justice served and you are tired of the secrets being kept behind the scenes of Little People Big World, go ahead and hit that like button right now. It tells the algorithm that we want the truth, not the edited reality. And if you are new here, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because the footage we are discussing today is going to change everything you thought you knew about the farm. Let's get into the setup of this disaster. To understand why 3 police cruisers ended up speeding down that long dirt driveway, we have to look at the timeline. According to exclusive theories and insider reports circling the most dedicated forums, Matt Roloff was not in Oregon. He was roughly 1,000 miles away in Surprise, Arizona. This is the key detail. Matt being away was not a coincidence. It was the trigger. Sources suggest that Caryn Chandler saw an opening. With the patriarch out of the state, the theory is that she attempted to execute a sneaky, fast-tracked, hostile takeover of the main big house. We aren't talking about moving in a few boxes of clothes. We're talking about a full-scale occupation. The reports indicate that she hired a private moving company, unmarked trucks, paid in cash, to show up at the crack of dawn. The plan was audacious. It was arrogant. It was the kind of move you make when you think you are untouchable. She thought she could claim the throne before anyone in the family even woke up to pour their coffee. Think about the mindset required to pull this off. For years, we have watched the tension simmer. We have watched the awkward negotiations, the forced smiles at family gatherings, and the passive-aggressive comments about the future of the property. But this was different. This was an act of war. The insiders are saying that Caryn believed possession is 9/10 of the law. If she could get her furniture in, get the locks changed, and get settled while Matt was away, she would present the rest of the family with a fait accompli, a done deal. She seemingly wanted to establish residency in the main house to solidify her claim, perhaps fearing that Matt might get cold feet or that the negotiations with the kids would stall indefinitely. It was a power play designed to cut Amy and the children out of the conversation entirely. The narrative emerging from the neighbors who witnessed the commotion is telling. They describe seeing 2 large box trucks turning off the main road and rumbling toward the farm entrance just as the sun was coming up. It was early. Too early for a standard move. This was stealth mode. The drivers were reportedly instructed to keep it quiet, to move fast, and to get inside the gates before the morning traffic started. Caryn was allegedly waiting there in her own vehicle, acting like the commander of an invasion force. She looked confident. She looked ready to finally take what she believed she deserved after years of waiting in the wings. She probably thought about how easy it was going to be. Matt was gone. The kids were in their own homes. Amy was surely asleep in her own house miles away. The coast was clear. Or so she thought. What Caryn failed to realize is that in a small town, and specifically on a property as watched as Roloff Farms, nothing goes unnoticed. The arrogance of the plan was its undoing. You cannot simply roll 18-wheeler moving trucks onto a landmark property without raising eyebrows. But more importantly, You cannot underestimate the protective instincts of the matriarch. While Caryn was playing checkers, checking the Arizona weather reports to make sure Matt was occupied, she didn't realize she was stepping onto a chessboard that had been set against her weeks ago. Let's dig deeper into the why of this moment. Why now? Why such a rush? The speculation is intense. Some insiders believe that Caryn has been feeling insecure about her standing in the relationship and her claim to the farm assets. With the farm sales stalling and the family dynamics becoming more toxic, there is a theory that she felt she was losing her grip. If the farm didn't sell, and if Matt's health forced him to reconsider his options, where would that leave her? By physically occupying the big house, the crown jewel of the estate, she forces the issue. It creates a legal tenancy situation that is a nightmare to unwind. It sends a message to Zach, to Jeremy, and especially to Amy. I am here, and I am not going anywhere. It was a gamble, a massive, high-stakes gamble. And for the first hour of that morning, it looked like it was going to pay off. The trucks made it to the lower entrance. The gate was open. The path was clear. But this is where the story shifts from a simple moving day to a standoff. We need to talk about the layout of the farm because it plays a crucial role in what happened next. The farm is a labyrinth of dirt roads, attractions, and private zones. To get to the big house with trucks that size, you have to commit. Once those trucks are on the narrow drive leading up to the main residence, there is no easy way to turn around. You are committed to the path. Caryn knew this. She knew that once those trucks were parked in the driveway, she controlled the physical space. No one could get in or out without her say-so. She was literally blocking the arteries of the farm to claim the heart. Imagine the drivers. They are just doing a job. They probably have no idea they are walking into the middle of a reality TV blood feud. They just see a woman telling them to drive up to the big house. They put the trucks in gear, the air brakes hiss, and they start the slow crawl up the hill. Caryn follows behind. Her heart must have been racing. This was it. The moment she became the lady of the manor, not just the girlfriend, not just the manager, but the occupant. The arrogance is breathtaking. It completely ignores the history of the land, the memories built there, and the legal complexities of the divorce settlement. It ignores the fact that Amy Roloff, despite moving off the main property, still has eyes everywhere. We have to consider the psychological state of Caryn Chandler here. For seasons, viewers have accused her of being the puppet master, the one whispering in Matt's ear. This event, if the reports are true, validates every single one of those theories. It shows a person who is tired of whispering and ready to start shouting. She didn't want to wait for permission. She didn't want to wait for the ink to dry on a new contract. She wanted possession. It is the ultimate act of entitlement. And it is this entitlement that blinded her to the very real, very physical trap that was about to snap shut. As the trucks rumbled past the pumpkin patch and approached the final turn toward the big house, the atmosphere changed. The birds were singing, the mist was lifting, and for a brief second, Caryn must have felt triumphant. She was the queen of the castle. But triumph is a dangerous illusion when you are trespassing on emotional and legal battlegrounds you don't fully understand. The setup was perfect, too perfect. And usually, when things seem too easy in the world of the Roloffs, it's because a storm is about to break. She thought she was the hunter, moving in for the kill while the lion was away. She didn't realize that the lioness never truly leaves her territory unguarded. The setup of this hostile takeover relies on the assumption that Amy is passive, that Amy is moved on, that Amy doesn't care anymore. That is the fatal flaw in Caryn's calculation. You don't spend decades building a farm, raising 4 children on that land, and navigating a public divorce just to let someone drive a moving truck over your legacy while you sleep. The premise of Caryn's plan was secrecy and speed. She needed to be unloaded and inside before the world woke up. But secrets on the farm have a way of leaking out. And speed doesn't matter when you hit a wall. As we move toward the twist, keep in mind the image of those trucks. Heavy, loud, cumbersome. They are not getaway cars. They are beasts of burden. Once they are in a tight spot, they are stuck. And Caryn, in her personal vehicle, was boxed in with them. She had created a convoy that she couldn't reverse. She had led herself into a bottleneck, and waiting at the other end of that bottleneck wasn't an open door. It wasn't a welcome mat. It was something she never expected. Something that turned her morning of victory into a morning of absolute humiliation. The stage was set for the most intense confrontation in the history of the show, and the cameras weren't even rolling, but the neighbors were watching, and the police were on their way. Caryn Chandler forgot one massive, catastrophic variable. She forgot that while Matt Roloff is the face of the farm, Amy Roloff is the keeper of its secrets. And more importantly, she forgot that a mother protecting her children's inheritance is the most dangerous force on earth. While Caryn was busy coordinating movers and checking the sunrise time, she failed to account for a legal maneuver that had taken place weeks prior, completely under the radar. This is the twist that turns this story from a simple family drama into a tactical masterclass. According to deep dive legal theories and leaked whispers from the county clerk's office, Amy Roloff had not been idle. She hadn't just moved on, she had dug in. Reports suggest that shortly after Matt announced his trip to Arizona, Amy's legal team secured what is known as a Temporary Geographic Exclusion Order, or a GEO, pertaining specifically to the main dwelling and its immediate curtilage during the owner's absence. Now, this is a rare and aggressive legal tool. Unlike a standard restraining order, which is about people, a geographic exclusion order is about property integrity. It essentially states that during a dispute or a transition period, specific assets are frozen in time. No one moves in, no one moves out, and absolutely no unauthorized personnel are allowed to alter the premises. It is the legal equivalent of a landmine, and Amy planted it right at the front door. So picture the scene again. The trucks are idling. The diesel fumes are filling the morning air. Caryn is stepping out of her car, phone in hand, ready to direct the first load of furniture into the foyer. She walks up to the front door, reaches for the hidden key, the one she assumed would be there, the one she felt entitled to use. But the key isn't there, and neither is the lock she remembers. The locks have been changed. But that wasn't the problem. A locked door is a hurdle. What happened next was a checkmate. As Caryn turned around, frustrated, perhaps thinking she needed to call a locksmith, she saw it. Through the morning mist, headlights appeared at the bottom of the long, winding driveway. Not police cars, not yet. It was a single, familiar SUV. It was Amy. But Amy didn't drive up to the house to confront Caryn. She didn't come to scream or throw a drink. She did something much colder and much more effective. She stopped her vehicle at the main heavy-duty steel cattle gate, the only exit wide enough for those massive moving trucks to pass through. Witnesses claim that Amy calmly got out of her vehicle, walked to the gate, which was currently swung open to allow the trucks in, and she swung it shut. The metallic clang of that gate hitting the post must have echoed all the way up the hill. Then, she produced a heavy-duty hardened steel padlock. She clicked it shut. She locked the gate. She trapped them. She trapped the trucks, she trapped the movers, and she trapped Caryn Chandler inside the perimeter of Roloff Farms. This is the moment the hostile takeover fell apart. Caryn was no longer the invader. She was the prisoner. The geography of the farm is unforgiving. The road leading up to the big house is narrow, flanked by soft mud and ditches, especially this time of year in Oregon. There is no room for a 26-foot box truck to make a three-point turn. To get out, they needed to go forward and loop back, or they needed to back all the way down a mile of winding dirt road. But with the gate locked at the bottom, they had nowhere to go. They were sitting ducks. The movers must have been looking at Caryn with pure confusion. They are paid by the hour, but they aren't paid to be accessories to a felony trespassing charge. Caryn, realizing what had just happened, reportedly went into a state of absolute panic masked as rage. She likely tried to call Matt in Arizona, but insiders speculate his phone was off, or perhaps he wisely chose not to answer, sensing a disturbance in the force. She was alone. She was exposed. And she was watching Amy Roloff pick up her cell phone on the other side of the gate. Amy didn't panic. She didn't scream. She dialed 911. We have to talk about the tone of this call. While we wait for the official audio to leak, the transcript descriptions circulating in private groups are chilling. Amy didn't say, "My ex-husband's girlfriend is trying to move in." She reportedly used specific, tactical language. "I have unauthorized intruders on the property. Heavy vehicles. They have breached the security perimeter. I am fearing for the security of the estate assets." She framed it not as a domestic dispute, which police hate getting involved in, but as a security breach and a trespassing event in progress. She weaponized the police dispatch system. By describing the unmarked trucks and the attempted entry, she guaranteed a priority one response. Inside the farm, the tension was unbearable. Caryn reportedly marched down the driveway on foot toward the gate, shouting at Amy to open it. Imagine the visual. Caryn Chandler, usually so composed on camera, boots sinking into the mud, waving her arms, demanding that Amy stop playing games. She likely threatened legal action. She likely screamed that Matt gave her permission. She likely invoked her status as the farm manager. But Amy? Amy just stood on the other side of the black steel bars, arms crossed, staring her down. She didn't engage. She didn't argue. She just waited. She knew the cavalry was coming. For the movers, this was a nightmare. They are trapped in the mud. They can't leave. A woman is screaming. Another woman is stonewalling. And then, the sound that changes everything. The wail of sirens cutting through the rural silence. Not one car, 3. Washington County sheriffs do not take trespassing calls on high-profile properties lightly. When they heard Roloff Farms and intruders, they rolled heavy. The arrival of the police marks the transition from a family squabble to a public incident. The flashing blue and red lights reflected off the wet ground, illuminating the faces of everyone involved. This is the climax. This is where the rubber meets the road. The officers exited their vehicles with hands resting near their holsters, standard procedure for an unknown intrusion call. They see the scene. 2 massive trucks idling, a woman screaming at the gate, and another woman standing calmly by her SUV. The police approach the gate. Amy unlocks it for them, but not for the trucks. She invites the officers in. This is a crucial power move. She controls the access. She is the gatekeeper. The officers walk up the drive to meet Caryn. Now, typically, Caryn is good at spinning a narrative. We've seen her do it for years. She likely tried to take control of the interaction immediately. Theories suggest she rushed the officers, pointing fingers at Amy, yelling, "She's holding us hostage! Arrest her! She locked us in! I have every right to be here!" This is the mistake. In a police standoff, the person screaming and demanding arrests is usually the one the cops look at with suspicion. The person standing calmly with a folder of paperwork is the one they listen to. And Amy had the folder. The officers separated the 2 women. They asked Caryn for proof of residency. Do you have a lease? Is your name on the deed for this specific parcel? Do you have a written authorization from the owner signed and notarized for this date? Caryn presumably stammered. She had Matt's verbal okay. She had her status as a girlfriend. She had her history. But in the eyes of the law, without a key and without a contract, she is a stranger trying to break into a house. Then the officers turned to Amy. Amy reportedly opened her folder and presented the geographic exclusion order and the current deed status, which still requires joint sign-off for major structural occupancy changes, pending the finalization of certain asset splits. She showed them the order that explicitly stated the property was to remain vacant and secure during Matt's absence. The police officer looked at the paper. He looked at Caryn. He looked back at the paper. It was over. The shift in the atmosphere was palpable. The officer didn't pull out handcuffs for Amy. He didn't tell Amy to unlock the gate. He turned to Caryn Chandler and issued a directive that must have felt like a slap in the face. He reportedly told her, "Ma'am, you are civilly trespassing. You have no legal standing to occupy this dwelling today. You need to vacate the premises immediately, or we will be forced to place you under arrest for criminal trespass." The color must have drained from Caryn's face. The hostile takeover had hit a brick wall. But it gets worse. She couldn't just leave. She had two massive moving trucks stuck in the driveway. The officers informed her that the trucks had to go, immediately. But the ground was soft. The trucks had been idling, sinking slightly into the Oregon mud. Amy, in a moment of absolute triumph, reportedly told the officers, "I'll unlock the gate when the trucks are reversing. I want to make sure they don't try to turn around on the lawn." She dictated the terms of the retreat. The movers, furious at this point, had to perform the most humiliating maneuver possible. They couldn't turn around. They had to put those massive trucks in reverse. Beeping. Loudly. Slowly. Backing down the long, winding, muddy driveway under the supervision of 3 police officers and Amy Roloff. Caryn had to walk. She couldn't ride in the trucks. Her car was blocked in by the truck she had ordered. So she had to walk down the driveway, past the police, past Amy, to get to her car, which was likely parked near the entrance or trapped between the trucks. It was the walk of shame to end all walks of shame. The mud splattered on her boots. The neighbors who had woken up were now standing on their porches, coffee mugs in hand, watching the manager of the farm being evicted by the police. It wasn't just a defeat. It was a public dismantling of her authority. The officers stayed until every single vehicle was off the property. They took a report. They likely issued Caryn a formal trespass warning, which is a document that goes into the system. If she returns to that specific house without the owner present, she goes straight to jail. No questions asked. Amy had not only stopped the move, she had legally banned Caryn from the premises in Matt's absence. As the last truck beeped its way out onto the main road, leaving tire tracks deep in the mud, Amy walked back to the gate. She didn't smile. She didn't cheer. She simply closed the heavy steel gate again. She clicked the padlock shut. She tugged on it to make sure it was secure. She got back in her car and drove away, leaving Caryn Chandler on the side of the road, surrounded by confused movers demanding payment for a job they couldn't finish. This climax redefines the power structure of the entire series. It proves that Matt's protection only extends as far as his physical presence. When he is gone, Amy is still the matriarch. The tension of that morning, the sirens, the shouting, the backing up of the trucks, is a symbol of the failed coup. Caryn tried to seize the crown, but she wasn't wearing the ring, and she certainly didn't have the keys. The triumph here belongs solely to Amy, who used the system, used the geography, and used her patience to orchestrate the most devastating no in the history of the Roloff family. But the story doesn't end with the trucks leaving. The fallout from this Tuesday morning catastrophe is nuclear. Matt is in Arizona, waking up to 20 missed calls and a police report. Caryn is humiliated and legally checked. And the footage? The footage captured by the neighbors is the ticking time bomb that is about to explode on the internet. The aftermath of the moving truck standoff is not just a moment of embarrassment. It is a scorched earth event that fundamentally changes the future of the Roloff legacy. As the last of the heavy-duty box trucks finally cleared the property line, reversing awkwardly onto the main road with their hazard lights flashing, a heavy silence fell over the farm. But do not mistake silence for peace. This was the silence of a battlefield after the cannon fire stopped. Caryn Chandler was left standing on the shoulder of the public road, her boots caked in mud, her phone glued to her ear, and her plans in absolute ruin. The movers, frustrated and unpaid for a completed delivery, were likely demanding compensation for their wasted morning. Reports indicate that Caryn had to handle this negotiation right there on the side of the road, under the watchful eyes of the police who remained until the area was clear. It was the ultimate dismantling of the manager persona she has cultivated for years. In that moment, she wasn't the woman running the farm. She was a woman who had just been legally evicted from it. We need to talk about the specific legal fallout of this incident because it is far more serious than just a wasted morning. According to legal experts analyzing the situation based on standard Oregon property laws and the reported police presence, Caryn was likely issued a formal trespass admonishment. This is not a parking ticket. This is a documented police order. It means that her name is now in the Washington County Sheriff's system, flagged against the address of the main house. If she attempts to enter that specific property again without the express, written presence or permission of the owner, and with Amy holding the geographic exclusion order, that permission is currently void, she faces immediate arrest. Not a warning, not a conversation, handcuffs. Think about the implications of this. Caryn Chandler, the woman who has been positioning herself as the future matriarch, the woman who has been making decisions about the pumpkin patch and the layout of the attractions, is now legally banned from the crown jewel of the estate. She cannot step foot on the porch of the big house without risking a criminal record. It is a humiliation that goes beyond reality TV drama. It is a permanent stain on her credibility. She tried to play the role of the owner, and the law reminded her that she is, on paper, a guest. And right now, she is an unwelcome one. Meanwhile, imagine the scene in Surprise, Arizona. Matt Roloff likely woke up to a phone that was melting down. Missed calls from Caryn, missed calls from the moving company, perhaps even a courtesy call from the sheriff's department advising him of the incident at his property. The chaos he tried to avoid by leaving the state had followed him, amplified by 1,000%. Insiders are speculating that this has caused a massive fracture in the relationship. Matt has always prided himself on being the smooth talker, the negotiator, the guy who can spin any situation. But there is no spinning this. His girlfriend was marched off his property by police because he wasn't there to protect her, and because he underestimated his ex-wife. Caryn is undoubtedly furious, feeling hung out to dry. She took the risk, she hired the trucks, and she took the fall. Matt is likely furious that his quiet transition plan blew up in such a spectacular public fashion. And where was Amy in the hours following the raid? She didn't take a victory lap on Instagram. She didn't post a cryptic quote about karma. She did something far more powerful. She went about her day. Witnesses say she was seen later that afternoon at a local feed store, looking completely unbothered. This is the ultimate power move. By refusing to acknowledge the drama publicly, she reinforces the idea that she was simply doing her duty. She wasn't fighting, she was managing. She treated the hostile takeover like a pest control issue, something to be handled efficiently and then forgotten. It drives Caryn crazy, it drives Matt crazy, and it makes Amy an absolute legend in the eyes of the fan base. But the real story is what happens next. The fallout has created a cold war on the farm. The big house is now empty, locked, and monitored. The movers have refused to return. And the neighbors? This is where the story gets truly juicy. We teased this earlier, but it is time to deliver the details on the cell phone footage. In the age of smartphones, nothing stays secret. It turns out that a neighbor, whose property borders the lower acres of the farm, was awakened by the backup beepers of the trucks. They grabbed their phone. They started recording. Sources who have seen clips of this footage describe it as grainy but undeniable. You can reportedly see the silhouette of a woman matching Caryn's description, waving her arms frantically near the gate. You can hear the shouting. You can see the flashing lights of the 3 police cruisers cutting through the morning fog. This footage is the smoking gun. It proves that this wasn't just a rumor. It wasn't just a tabloid exaggeration. It happened. There are rumors that major media outlets are currently in a bidding war for this clip. TLC legal teams are allegedly scrambling, trying to figure out if they can suppress it or if they should try to buy it themselves to use in a future special. If this footage leaks, and let's be honest, in 2024 everything leaks, it will be the most viral moment in the history of Little People, Big World. It strips away the editing, the music, and the confessional interviews, and shows us the raw, ugly truth of a family torn apart by greed and property disputes. We have to ask ourselves, what was Caryn thinking? The arrogance required to attempt a move-in of this magnitude without securing the perimeter is baffling. It speaks to a level of delusion that suggests she truly believes she is above the rules that apply to everyone else. She forgot that the farm is not just a set for a TV show. It is a real property with real laws and real boundaries. And she forgot that Amy Roloff, for all her frustrations, played the long game. Amy waited. She got her legal ducks in a row. and when the trap was sprung, she didn't hesitate. This event signals the end of the nice era. There is no going back from calling the police on your ex-husband's partner. The gloves are off. The next time these two women see each other, it won't be for a forced conversation at a graduation party. It will likely be in a courtroom. The moving truck standoff has drawn a line in the sand that can never be uncrossed. Amy has declared that the big house is off limits. Caryn has been branded a trespasser, and Matt is stuck in the middle, watching his empire crumble under the weight of his own indecision. So, here's the question I need you to answer, and I want you to be honest in the comments below. We have laid out the facts, the theories, and the insider reports. We have walked through the timeline from the first truck arriving to the last police car leaving. Now, I put it to you. Was Amy Roloff justified in trapping those trucks and calling the police? Did she do what any protector of their family assets would do? Or did she take it too far? Was this a necessary defense of her children's inheritance? Or was it a petty act of revenge against the woman who replaced her? There is a divide forming in the fan base right now. Some are calling Amy a hero, a boss, a woman who finally stood up and said, enough is enough. They are celebrating the fact that Caryn was finally told no. Others are saying it was too harsh, that she should have just let them move in and dealt with it later. But let's be real, if she had let them move in, she would never have gotten them out. Possession is 9/10 of the law, and Amy made sure Caryn never got possession. Hit that like button if you think Amy is an absolute boss for protecting her turf. Smash it. Let's get this video to 10,000 likes to show Team Amy that we have her back. And if you think Caryn was just trying to move into a house she thought was hers, let me know why in the comments. But be prepared to defend that opinion, because the evidence is stacked against her. And listen, if you want to be the first to see that neighbor's cell phone footage when it drops, and trust me, we are refreshing the feeds every single hour waiting for it, you need to be subscribed to this channel. We are tracking the digital footprint of that video file right now. As soon as it hits the public domain, we will have a frame-by-frame breakdown analyzing every shout, every gesture, and every reaction. You do not want to miss that. This isn't just reality TV anymore. This is a legal war. The police report is filed, the trespass warning is active, and the moving trucks are gone. But the battle for Roloff Farms has just entered its most dangerous phase. Matt is coming back from Arizona, and he is coming back to a war zone. Stay tuned, stay subscribed, and keep your notifications on. The standoff might be over, but the war has just begun.